each of the races that we had, it was BU, Rutgers, Brown, and Penn. They all they all had the same sort of story because we were a large crew. We were and we had a lot of the weight training behind us, and we had a lot of honestly, this again just shoulders of giants. I look at that crew and I realize how infinitesimally small I was in so many regards with the crew that I was on, from John Brokars to Jim Boga to Aaron and Andrew and Grant Earl. Like I was the little dude in between these huge towers of just sheer power.
Everybody, welcome back to Fast Friends. We have the one and only Captain Scott Fentress back on the mic with us. We're so excited to follow up on where we were with Scott. I believe when we left off, we were talking about how Scott and the Northeastern Huskies had come into this 96 spring season with an incredible juggernaut feel of that they were just fast. And they were just waiting to get to the point where they could line up against the other crews in the Eastern Sprints League and start to show everybody and themselves what that speed was. I believe we talked a little bit about the race against BU, but Scott, more than anything, I don't want to tell your story for you. Everyone knows who you are, and we have been dying to get you back onto the Mettle Factory and the Fast Friend Show to tell us more about that historic 96 season.
Standing. First of all, I'm humbled to be able to share this with you. I'm humbled to be among you guys. This is quite a privilege. So thank you again for hosting this and taking this a step further or into second gear or however you want to phrase this. But I appreciate you pulling some of that that history together. In the time that we spoke last, I had an opportunity to combine some data points that, again, we're going back in history. We're testing an old man here, but it's pushing 30 years. And the more I started thinking about each of these each events and each of the races, it started to really it actually something really magical started to happen. And I pulled I dug into the banks, but I wanted to get some parallels together. And I hate to do any rehashing. So, I'm going to save you guys from any of that. But something that I noticed that was consistent throughout that racing season. Again, this is from the time that burst out of the tanks, and we talked about that getting onto the water, and then our racing season. And I had to I thought about the race against BU, and again the race against Rutgers. And against Brown, and something that I noticed, and I even went back to some videos that Steve Simcoe has collated on his website, and that was really helpful. I mean, this is back, believe it or not, this is using like giant VHS videotapes. So the video is horrific quality, but that adds to some of the flavor here because you can use your imagination. But one thing that is consistent is jumping out of the gates. That I think Dan, you touched on it, like the ability to seize the power, the fast twitch, coming out of gates, and having the stamina to run a race to 2,000 meters. And this wasn't a case where we would just get a length ahead by 500 meters and then dive. Yeah, fly and die. You can hear the Top Gun music but that's how these races went from BU. The first 20 strokes. You could see on the videos that our stern was on their bow ball in 20 strokes. And in a collegiate environment, NCAA collegiate environment, that is a lot. That's a lot of movement in 20 strokes. And then basically hanging on lead until the 500 or 1,000. And each of the races that we had, it was BU, Rutgers, Brown, and Penn. They all they all had the same sort of story because we were a large crew. We were, and we had a lot of the weight training behind us, and we had a lot of. Honestly, this again just shoulders of giants. I look at that crew and I realize how infinitesimally small I was in so many regards with the crew that I was on. from John Brokars to Tim Boga to Aaron and Andrew and Grant Earl. Like I was the little dude in between these huge towers of just sheer power. If you guys know Johnny Brokars, and I'd love to have him on the show at some point. But I mean, that's what I saw for like 3 years of just his giant like white buffalo back. And knowing that Grant Earl is behind me, Chad Harden, those guys, and Steve Simcoe, all of those guys were just ultra powerhouses. And seeing the ability for that crew to come together and just really, like Northeastern, even national team head coaches have said, Northeastern, you row pretty. Well, we did. That was a pretty rowing crew. We had a coxswain that coached us every stroke. That guy, he was part of the magic sauce because he's got the best view in the house. And for years, he was able to get all the blades doing the same thing and just making some real consistent rowing and blade placement and Buzz Congram and just being able, he's just always measuring and doing so the crew rowed. It was pretty, but then it was powerful, and then we had just beasts of guys that were in that boat, just like just incredible talent. Dan, I'm sorry, man, you never got to see that. So that crew was something special.
That's not true. Is that crew is why I went to Northeastern, right? Like you gotta think about the time, and you gotta think about the time and the era. You talk about VHS, yet rowing news, right? And it gets like, again, spoiler alert, it is historical context, so it's out there, but it's like all I knew was that Northeastern won the Eastern sprints, and at that time in my like, there was no internet. There's all I'm focusing on that junior national sheet, like Wyatt just talked about it, like just trying to get to as high up as I could in the junior national team rankings. And all I heard was like Northeastern won the Eastern sprints. Like I didn't even know that Callan Washington existed at that time in my life. I really didn't. Steve Gladstone and I joke about it all the time. So that crew is why I went to Northeastern, because I wanted to go to where the champions were from.
Yeah. So Dan and I had this conversation, Scott. To Dan's point, in more of an analog world, I too I didn't even know what Northeastern was. I lived in Longwood, Florida, but I rode, and my next door neighbor was a Northeastern alumni, and so he got the alumni magazine. And Dan and I talked about, we saw the same article, and I was obviously behind Dan. So I think I was probably a freshman or sophomore in high school. And there was a write-up in that Northeastern alumni magazine about the 96 crew winning Eastern sprints. And he basically handed it to me, and he's like, hey, you're rowing. Like, you should read this article. I went here. And meanwhile, he went there like when I think it was still like, in the 50s. Like it was, I think he went to the YMCA version of Northeastern as a commuter. And
rowing didn't exist.
Rowing didn't exist. But he's like, hey, you might find this interesting. And then it just planted a seed and put it on my radar. And Dan and I had this conversation that like we both read that same thing and we're like, oh, just check this out. And then honestly, like that 1-page article changed the trajectory of my life because of where I went to college, where I rode, where I wanted to get recruited to go. And Dan and I, had the same reaction so that you were part of. And so I think that for us, like I'm very intrigued both as an alumni and also just from a pure interesting content standpoint of this episode. Look, Scott, there's no secret that crew was amazing. And there's no secret that crew was, top of its game. I think what is also documented, asterisks, whatever you want to call it, is a very interesting point in you guys go to the IRA. You'll have to take us through the weekend. I believe you go through a heat even. And then the wheels fall off in certain regards. And I'll let you explain in your own words, but I mean, again, this is a touchy subject, obviously, I'm talking to the guy who was in the boat, but I'm also a very curious alumni, because I wasn't there and it happened before I got there. And it was always this mystique in the air in the boathouse of like, yeah, but the 96 crew, ... And so I'm not trying to pick a scab. I'm just more interested in like, give us your perspective. I think it'd be really interesting to scratch an itch for me and probably Dan, and also for our audience to understand. And then obviously not as a detriment to that crew, but as a celebration of like, you guys had a lot of success, and then obviously the things, that can derail success sometimes, and then how you get back up would be really interesting.
No, that's that. Yeah, super. And so
And a celebration of your speed, right? Like no matter what happens, you guys are you are historically fast crew, and that needs to be. This is part of recognizing that.
yeah. So we talk about celebrating speed and celebrating a successful endeavor. It's an adventure. That crew, that magic carried through into through sprints. The Eastern Sprints victory was great, and so we're on a bow wave, if you will, of momentum. And I don't think that we lost momentum going into Iris. We knew what we had to do to win, and there was no question in our mind that we went there to win. We didn't go there to have any challenges, or difficulties. We knew that the West Coast was strong. Everybody shows up from the West Coast to show us what they have, and we went into the heat, and there was no question that we faced some fast crews there. We didn't have a good race. We didn't win our heat, and so we were going into the repechage, which is kind of your redraw. And I feel like we didn't have the race that we had envisioned, and that's fine. But it didn't shatter our spirits. We knew we were coming into the reps to go and completely just dominate everybody, and go and then proceed to the final, and win. That was the vision. That was the goal. That we spent a lot of time, and Buzz had some very interesting coaching techniques, and Dan, I know you've had some. You've had a little bit different experience with yoga and boxing, but one thing that Buzz was very good at was mentally visualizing races and kind of going into a pseudo spiritual side of things, and really to get together as a crew. I mean, I remember we were laying down on the floor of Buzz's hotel room in Camden, New Jersey, and essentially just envisioning the entire race from beginning to end, and just doing a state of relaxation just to get everybody into a mindset. And we went there with added flair. I think our assistant coach had bought us brand new unisuits. They were like these white unisuits, which was just absolutely hilarious. They were like black and white, and it was kind of like a Michael Johnson moment where he goes out there to wearing his gold shoes. Of course, you can't lose wearing that. And it's the same. That's the same attitude that we had. We're like, oh, we're gonna wear these crazy white. Like who wears white? And we went out there with the white unis, and we were dry. Like we went to the repechage, and in the van. We had to turn the van around, and I remember Buzz like you stop the van. Buzz informed us that we had to go back to the hotel, and we're like, what are you talking about? And he's like, well, the university has done some research, and the athletic director has decided to remove us from the race, to disqualify the crew from rowing in the final. And we were like, this is a practical joke. Like what are you talking about? We are going to the race. We're gonna go win. We're gonna beat everybody. and this is IRA. This is the national championships with all the everybody from Eastern Sprints, the West Coast, and and hearing that come from Buzz, all of us were in the van headed over to the race course, and and uh, and it was like a surreal moment, like one of those moments where I was like, I must be dreaming. Like what did I just hear? Nope, the van turned around and we went back to we started driving back to the hotel. And once we got to the hotel, I think reality started kind of hitting us. We're like, what? This is you, what do you mean? Can the school do that? How can Northeastern, prevent us from racing? And no kidding. Um, it was later explained to us. I mean, very quickly, but later explained to us like exactly what had happened is we were rowing with an ineligible rower. One of our guys had an incomplete grade from 2.5 years before, which was very interesting. Is a W, which it means an incomplete, and and so that had like gone through the registrar's office, and they had mentioned it, brought up to the athletics department. The athletic director contacted Buzz the day of the reps, and continued racing at IRAs, and we they withheld us from rowing because we were rowing with an ineligible rower. I don't think anybody took that very well, and that was one of the harder impact. And it's very difficult to see the silver lining on these things, but there are. And this is one of those learning moments. And I mean, it just cratered everybody. It cratered the crew, cratered everybody. And I think everybody went into like a depression, because not only could we not race at that race, but through NCAA eligibility rules, the compliance division made a determination that we forfeited every race of that year, and so we no longer were Eastern Sprints champions. We lost every race that season, and we forfeited the whole season, and then we also forfeited the next 10 races, and 1 year of eligibility. It was like the biggest black eye you could imagine. I mean, it was just it was really that was not at all what anybody expected. You can brace for impact, but once in a while, God or the gods that be, they throw you some curveballs, and that was one that we just didn't see, and it hit everybody sideways, and it honestly shattered a lot of things. So immediately, everybody kind of we actually, the crew was very resilient. We banded together right after that, and instead of everybody going their separate ways, the coxswain and the captain. This is Bo Dawson. Again, just like hats off to this guy, and Steve Simcoe, the team captain. They're like, hey, we need to go spend some time together, and just and go have a good cry. And we rented. Those guys rented it was a rent-a-wreck, because we're all Northeastern guys. We're broke, and rented this van, drove down to Connecticut. The time was my girlfriend's house, and we just completely just crashed at her house for a few days, and we just it was basically just a campfire session for 9 dudes, and we just we just were able to have some healing moments, and I think that was really that was a really unique move, and that you think about resilience and Mettle, and we talk about like forging steel, and here's this team, these guys are just continuing to forge this this magic even through absolute sheer defeat. I mean, it was mind-numbingly embarrassing, painful, crushing defeat. and knowing that what we had accomplished was lost, and that the potential for being national champions was removed from us. So we felt like that was like stolen from us, and it was just a beatdown. So but I think that period that we were able to just go and congeal as a crew, even through pain and misery, is like you know, taking the steel that's being smashed and again and again on the anvil, and you just hammering and hammering and hammering it, and then you put it, you do the process of quenching. You put it into the water so that steel, the micro at that microscopic level, can change and morph, and it changes into dendritic structures, and at the cellular mechanical level, like that steel goes through a process, just like we as a crew were going through a process. It wasn't a chemical one, but it was a spiritual one, a mental one, and that was that summer of '96. Like we spent some time getting a good cry, and just kind of a bunch of warriors around a campfire, and telling sea stories, honestly. And that was again a necessary process. I think it was great. And then we disbanded for the rest of the summer, um, and to kind of that was it. Like that was a time to reflect, and that was a chance to rebuild, to refit, kind of gain our strength again.
So
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna. So just to recap real quick, and again, like Scott, thank you for being that transparent and genuine. I mean, I'm listening to this, and it's a tough story to listen to.
Yeah.
And I'm many classes behind you in that program, as is Dan. Not as many, but some. Just to recap, though, you were a skinny kid who found rowing, went to Tulane. You go to Northeastern on a whim, basically a make or break deal. You make the varsity. You guys have an undefeated season. You win the Eastern Sprints. You basically had a bad row. You go back you're on your way to your revenge row to go get into the final to go win a national championship, and the plug gets pulled. So totally, quick synopsis, but a heavy story. I think, and I'll let Steve go here in a second, but tell us the go forward, unless Steve, you had something else. But just tell us the go forward, because I don't want to keep picking at a scab, but I think that again, it's, you articulated it in a very, you articulated I'm heartbroken for you. But I think that I really want to hear the pickup, because I think that that's really important. Because man plans and God laughs, I think is the phrase. But I'd love to hear kind of okay, now next page. So I'd love to hear that also. But go ahead, Steve. Sorry.
I have an observation, and Justin, I think the country song is "If you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans." Is the hook to the country song. But no, for me, I'm thinking about it as a coach and how would I respond. But I'm also trying to think about it from the opponent's coach, the opponent's side of things too. And here it is. It's you guys, you got Reggie Bush, right? The wins are still there. They just been vacated in the record books. So it's important to share that and continue to have people remember that. And that it shouldn't it shouldn't tarnish what was accomplished. It might change the record books, but it shouldn't tarnish what was accomplished there. The way you hear it, when I first heard it, I was like, oh, like, so like one of the guys like just didn't go to the class all semester. And now you're turning around and now I'm finally hearing it from your mouth. And you're like, yeah, it was like a W from like 3 years ago. And, so to me, I'm sitting there and I'm remembering, like my freshman year of college, we were on our way to an undefeated season, just like you guys. And we finished our dual race against Cornell, and we're the official says, "Coxswain, show me your weight." And our coxswain's like,
It's a whole pistol.
no, our coxswain's like, "Oh fuck, guys, oh shit, oh shit." And so he's like, "I don't have it, sir."
Yeah, he doesn't
And
have the weight.
and
That's
and so like we get back to the dock and we're like, oh shit, there goes the season, like there it goes, right? And the coach in the other boat, or from the Cornell team, goes, listen, like, you guys beat the pants off of us, like 5 pounds wasn't going to make that up, right? And so here's my question, and I think it's almost like homework for all of us. That trophy against Harvard, is that 96 season, does it say Northeastern on it, or is it blank,
no,
or does it say Harvard?
all of our successes were removed, and it says Harvard. And it's
It's
funny because you
okay,
can actually, yeah. So
because
it's
that
not.
that makes me mad, because if I was the opposing coach there, I would have just left that thing blank. I would
Yeah,
not
but you're
have
not
put
Harry Parker.
I would have left that thing blank. I would not have put Northeastern on it,
Yeah,
but I would not have put
As I say,
Harvard.
Harry is past. It's hard to talk trash without Harry a chance
I
to
know,
defend
I'm not
himself. But
trying. I'm not trying.
we are
But
talking,
I'm
but
just
we're
like,
also talking about Harvard. There'll be plenty of people to come defend him, so I'm not worried about it.
yes.
yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think like that just I got to say, like, just thank you. And I'm sorry you guys got the Reggie Bush treatment, but you know what? He's getting his Heisman back, right?
I love it.
Or
There you go.
he's already gotten it. So,
I mean,
you know,
well,
Yeah,
and then that light, I have a follow up too, because I think it is important as a coach, and I do want to do that homework. But I also think, like, from the athlete perspective, the opponents, uh, it's it'd be really interesting to bring somebody in on the other side of, like, I can't imagine the amount of fortitude, Scott, that you guys had to have to, like, return, like, in rowing, earning a fucking shirt is like, it's such an act of courage to continue that tradition in rowing, to give the shirt off your back to the person who just defeated you, and to accept that back on a technicality. I don't like, I just, the mixed emotions from the whole, like, the reverberation of that from, like, away. And I mean, Luke, you are the expert in owning shirts, so um I just think I don't need to go into it. It's just a question, like I said, homework, to just try and empathetically put ourselves in that position of, one, to have to give those trophies back, those medals and those shirts, and just to, like, think that you guys so quickly turned around and said, hey, we're not abandoning each other in that moment. Like, that to me is more of the story here, is like, I have to address it, but, like, the fact that you guys had the foresight to get together and create an environment where you were able to rebuild your resiliency through that vulnerable moment, because that's one of the things that I think Mettle is you cannot be truly resilient until you're truly vulnerable first. And you guys did it. And I think that the story of Scott in some ways only gets better of how you started to manifest that and use the alchemy of turning lead into gold.
So
This all just feels like weird to me, in the sense that, like, hey, if I were competing against a team and we found out somebody on the opposing team was, like, on the juice, I'd be like, that's a problem. That, yeah, that's a big problem. And I understand rules. I do understand rules, but I'm trying to figure out how an incomplete grade from 3 years ago somehow gave your team in that year a competitive advantage that then precluded you from competing in that year and then erased everything that you had accomplished. Like that doesn't
I'm
feel right
I'm
to
gonna
me.
assume,
If there was a cheating aspect, if there was a
yeah,
performance enhancing aspect, if there was some advantage that was gained. But I'm not sure that there's like a linear proof of like, hey, well, this incomplete grade 3 years ago is obviously the reason you guys were so fast. And because of that, we're taking it all away. That's a little
yeah.
confusing to me. With the understanding like rules are rules, yes, but I mean, there's kind of like,
Hey,
where does
it's
common sense prevail? And if the other teams were given the chance, right? If I were competing against you at the IRA, and somebody told me this story, I'd be like, cool, send them in the semifinals. Like, let them row the rep. Like, I don't understand. I wouldn't really understand the issue. That would not be an issue for me or my teammates.
yeah. So yeah. Sorry, Justin. Go ahead. I'm
So
not trying to interrupt you.
No, I
no, I
think
will tell you,
like
Luke.
go
I'll
ahead,
tell you,
Steve.
Luke. Like process wise, like just because I'm in it, right? What that says to me is we're in the snail pace. Like now everything is tracked on a computer, and it's just instantly it shows up, right? And there's required. You have to have a certain number of credits each year because you have like a on track to graduate. And so what they what they did was they were doing an audit. And this is what I'm assuming, Scott, and you might not even know the full story, so you can correct me or not, but this my assumption is that they're doing an audit and they came up late and they wound up saying this person is like 3 credits shy of his required on track completion over those 3 years. And it turns out we should have flagged them a while ago. And guess what? Well, we know about it now, so we have to do something now. And so it's like, but it's like because of like the snail pace. Like right now, if I have an athlete who drops a class to add a class later on, if they're below 12 credits for more than like 5 minutes, I get an email, and they get an automatic email saying you're ineligible because you're below credits, right? Fix it, right? But you guys just got emails like while you guys were probably assigned emails, Scott, like while you were at Northeastern. Like they didn't have the email thing when you first started.
Yeah. So I mean, technology was coming of age, and I mean we did have email, but it's I think we're arguing about the wrong thing, and I
Yeah.
love this discussion because Steve, your point is spot on. Nowadays, there's systems, and it's funny. My wife, she's a 3-time NCAA national champion. Big, for a big school. Like she was, 3-time national champion for field hockey at North Carolina, Tar Heel. And I tell her this story, and it blows her mind. She's like, "Wait a second, you guys are a Division I program, and yada 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 yada." And it's like, what like where was the tutoring? Where was the school like catering to the individual? Like where like and I think that Northeastern just didn't have that. We didn't really have that connection. And it's no, honestly, like, is it the individual's fault? Is it the school's fault? Is it the school's fault? It doesn't. None of that really matters. The fact is that a rule was found that was broken. I think Luke, you touched on it. Steve, you nailed it. The rule was broken, and the compliance is black and white. There's no gray. It's like you're rowing with an illegal person, and so the school the school did what it determined was right in that instant. They could have, should have, would have. Like none of that really matters. What matters is that it like that call was made, a decision was made. And the second half of my career, or maybe like my third trimester, was is, I'm a pawn of the political machine. Somebody makes a tweet and we go to war. Like people die. And or a congressional mandate makes something. It makes sanctions that are very hard because it exposes risk to individuals like on like a life and death, like a real life and death. The figurative manner of which we are at war at the collegiate Division I level. Nobody died. A decision was made, and the team sustained a challenge. Could it have been avoided? Absolutely. Could we, and could the other teams, could the NCAA said, oh, well, we got it. We're going to let this, roll. Like anything could have happened, but the way it happened, I really think it made the program stronger. And that's really what happened. It decimated the team at that second. We lost a season. And I believe what we're trying to do in this iteration, this episode, is to get how do we like get through this? Because again, I love talking about this very controversial subject. But it is exactly what happened. Could it? I would have loved to have seen it gone a different way, but yeah, I'm really glad it went the way that it did. Because I got to see resilience of individuals that I've never seen in people. Watching the team captain who just built this team, literally from the ground up and shattered. And the fact that guy Steve Simcoe, that guy still inspires me more today because he rows 15,000 meters every single day, like 7 days a week. And any second, that guy will get into a boat and make it a winning crew. That guy's a champion beyond like my biggest imagination. That season forged him into a person. It forged everybody. We all came out of there different. We came out of there with some scars, but stronger. And I want to talk about the next season, kind of to Justin's point. And I'm really, really glad you brought.
Yeah. So thank you again. Thank you for sharing. I think there's an amazing debate to be had, which will be a whole episode. But I
love it.
I think, yeah, take a Scott. You guys do your kind of off-site, just that crew, and then talk to us about okay, we're pressing on now. As far as we're on Scott's journey. Yeah. Now you decide to go do what? So tell us kind of like how you kind of manifested that maybe lower point in a wave and got back up onto the high point of the bow, if you will.
Love it. Great. Thanks, Justin.
Yep.
I want to talk a little bit about that. So we all came back from the summer, and I remember getting back to Northeastern in August, late August, September. And the first thing is I didn't even recognize the coach. I mean, but I was like, that's not Buzz. Because we hadn't seen him for, a month and a half or 2 months. And he was changed. That season, he became a different person. He looked different, acted different. And it showed. And it was just like that guy went through fire and brimstone, like the rocks and shoals. He was dragged over the worst of it. And we all kind of reacted. Everybody sees that. You see that in a person. You're like, man, like what? Like I had a rough summer, but that guy, had a rough summer. I'm glad he's here with us. Is kind of like what we were thinking. And so now what? You come back to, you got to train, you got to come together. And now it's Chad Harden, who the team captain, got to see this. He had to manufacture greatness. And this was a real challenge. But with challenge is opportunity. And I love to talk about the season of 96, 97 because it was very, very different. Unlike anything I'd ever seen. because the crew, the Northeastern University was not allowed to race in any NCAA sanctioned event for 10 events.
So
And
what
one,
did that mean?
yeah, like,
Exactly. Yeah.
so what does that mean? That means that the coaching staff, Buzz, like all the leadership had to figure out how to get this crew to 10 non-NCAA sanctioned events, like 10 racing events, in time to be able to do any dual meets or to go to Eastern sprints or anything. And that's really like what we did.
Okay, so in other words, just for the audience, just to keep us on we'll get right back into it. You had to go to like bullshit raced East against 3 other crews, head race, that like there's 6 crews at head of the Connecticut. Well, it's a lot bigger now, but whatever, right? So you had to race like all these bullshit races to check boxes. So that you were then able to like race the real stuff, so to speak.
So I don't think any race is bullshit. Because I rode at Tulane, a club sport in like Jog Center.
all right, that's true. That's true.
So like I'm very proud. I'm very proud of my
non-typically
racing at the head
races.
of the Chattahoochee and the head of the.
I raced head of the Chattahoochee too, when I was in high school. Head of the hooch, but I'm saying is,
so did you have to
typical scheduled races that Northeastern would typically race in a year?
Amen. That you nailed it, Steve. I'd go ahead, man.
Do you have to like sign up and not go, or you had to, because you said that you were docked those 10, right? So did you just have those on the books and then not go, or just didn't count?
It was interesting. Like we had to go and compete. We had to go physically and race at these other events that were that couldn't be NCAA. Like, so we'd have to go to these invitationals. Like we did Augusta Invitational. We went to my favorite. We did head of the Connecticut. My favorite one, which it was, I think the biggest out of pocket was we went to the first ever Royal, the Royal Hawaiian Regatta Challenge in Oahu.
Yeah, you guys
never been to Hawaii.
I remember that in the boathouse. There was like the like mahogany cup or something. You guys won it.
Yeah, and it was kind of a funny race. Like here's this Division I. Like we flew over to Hawaii, and so did crews from Japan. There was a crew from there were outrigger boats from the Hawaiian Islands that were there, that just can't race the same speed. But Stanford, I think Oregon was there, Washington University, New Zealand and Australia all like showed up, and so all these crazy crews from all over the Pacific, showed up and in Hawaii, and we flew a boat over and and we raced in the silly, and it was like nobody took it seriously. I think we partied more than we did. And I hate to say this, but like we were coming back to the hotel, and I remember I was like, oh my God, we have to race. We got to race in like an hour and a half. We're looking at our time, and so the sun's already up, and we're staggering into the elevator, and other teams were coming down the elevator to go to the race course, and we were just going to get like dressed, and then had to go race in this silly regatta, and we spanked everybody. It was like it was and everybody was just wasted and drunk still. It wasn't even like a hangover. Like people were still drunk, and it was like absurd because nobody took it. It was a lot of fun, but it was painful because racing against Division II or club sports teams is not I wouldn't want to be on the opposing, I put myself in the shoes of Stanford, and I'm like, oh man, or Oregon and Washington University, and again, like I love all programs. Everybody's, if Tulane went there, I rode for Tulane, we would have gotten spanked by these guys, like by this crew from Northeastern. But again, it was a necessary evil. The the vision, the goal was to get to make, to get eligibility. So we were doing every single event that we could in order to be able to meet this weird, this sanctioning in time for the sprint season and then spring. And so we did all those races. We went to the Augusta Invitational. We went to Dad Vale. I don't know. You know what? I take that back. I don't think we went to Dad Vale because that would have been later in the season. But we hit all these crazy races, and then we started that season. And on schedule, we made it just barely, like within days, I believe. But Justin, I think, I know you're dying for me to get to the point. We never really like we didn't, we didn't heal to the point where we were medal contention, contenders for. We weren't delivering times. I think we collected another Harvard shirt, which is great. But the boat wasn't moving as fast as as we knew it could, so, and as it had before. So that season was very painful. The boat mechanics were a little bit different. There was the crew program took heavy rounds. It's just like Rocky Balboa, going getting smashed in the first round. It took a couple of rounds for us to be able to come and get our heads clear. And that was one year that our heads were not, we were not dialed in. We were not world class. But I'll tell you what, Chad Harden, the team captain, trying to manifest greatness, where we still made it to the grand final at Eastern Sprints in '97. What a feat, and that is an accomplishment. Is just to get that crew kind of back together and still make the number one, the grand final in any race. I think is a big deal. We didn't make any. We weren't in medal contenders. But we also, it wasn't a medal contending crew. So I'm going to pause there and let you guys react to any of that.
Go ahead, Luke. It looks like you're dying to talk.
No, it's just fascinating. I mean, there's just that feeling of like, you guys were all business in '96, like all business, showing up with all this confidence, and then you got the rug pulled out from you, and you guys go and you do some soul searching. And there's like, it just seems like there are these circles, these waves that happen, right? There was the immediate one at the IRA where it's like, oh, you can't race. And you guys are, oh gosh, we can't race. And then it's like, oh, by the way, we're going to go ahead and erase everything you did this entire season. And you're like, okay, so now none of this matters. Like now all of a sudden we're told that like none of the results stand. And then you're told, oh, and oh, by the way, now you got to go do a bunch of Mickey Mouse rowing, wherever you can find it. And it seems like you guys might have just been at a point where you're like, all right, enough's enough. Like, let's pull hard and have fun, and then, get through the fall, and we'll kind of like get repositioned coming back into the spring. Is that kind of how it went, and why you're saying like, yeah, by the time we got to Eastern Sprints, getting to that grand final for that crew and the guys that were still there was an accomplishment?
So great recap. I think you nailed it. I think you captured the essence, but there's definitely some spirit there that it changes with personality. Every team has a different personality, and there's different there's different stressors and different relationships, and we were definitely dealing with that rebuild, that refit. The fall season was just, it was very disorganized, chaotic, and we weren't nearly as focused. So I think that is exactly like you nailed it. We made some mistakes that put some setbacks into some of the rowers. Like one of the guys that we rowed with, he was this tremendously talented individual as a walk-on. He actually played football at Northeastern, then he started rowing. I mean, he dislocated his shoulder, playing in the surf zone in Hawaii, like during that race, and it took him out for basically the rest of the year. So you just, uh, really wise captain, once told me that you got to keep yourself from getting injured, and that's going to require some luck. And we had, I think 96, we had a lot of things that were riding for us. We had a lot of luck. We had a lot of momentum. Things were focused, as you mentioned, Luke. But in 97, we had we had a series of bad luck. Guys, we were also rolling some guys that probably weren't in the top condition. And they maybe, I like the rowing machine never lies, the erg never lies, and we had guys that were not, we weren't producing world class times on the rowing machine, and I'm one of them. I was one of them. I rode faster in 96, and then later on in 97, but during that fall and spring season, I think everybody had some of that residual, residual pain and just disorganization and chaos. So our sprint season that year, it reflects that level of performance and focus and commitment. But that was 97 was a tough one, but that summer was very pivotal in a lot of ways, and I want to. There's some nuggets there I want to get to, but
take us there.
But I don't want to. Again, I'm not trying to rush us through that. But I think
no, you're not rushing, but definitely take us to that summer, right? So I think that you've kind of summarized it really well as far as the hangover from 96 into 97, and some of the awkwardness that probably was lingering in the air. But yeah, certainly, it sounds like there was a lot of fun too. But. Just going back there, like talk to us about that summer of 97, and then that'll probably springboard us out. But yeah, we love to kind of hear.
Love it. So we coming on the heels of the sprints, Eastern sprints, IRAs. Like I think we were probably dead last in the grand final there. Princeton had a strong boat, Yale, Brown, Harvard, and believe it or not, Wisconsin delivered pretty well in that season as well. So they came out of the petite finals, and they made the grand final that year. That summer was interesting because four of us were selected or nominated to go to these rowing camps. These are the pre-elite rowing camps, and it's a little bit ironic. One of the guys actually, our head coach nominated and sent him to the senior camp in Princeton, and then the rest of us were sent to Elkhart, Indiana. That was like the developmental, the U23 kind of the pre-elite camps. And I'll get to kind of the irony in a minute, but that was a very, very pivotal time. Like, we were living in host families. That summer, this lady, Claudia Pugh, she offered her house to a couple of us, like Ian Coveney and myself. I know that Bill Plifka and Grant were all at this training camp, and this was a really, really this is an interesting camp. So you guys have all been to these camps, and Chris Clark, the Wisconsin head coach, he's kind of the head cheese at this particular camp. But there was a bunch of national team coaches there, and everybody's who's who that can deliver a rowing machine score is showing up at these camps. And I think they were able to boat like 4 or 5, eights of this bunch of guys, and they just basically take your ERG score, top 8 ERG scores, you're in boat 1. The next 8, you're in boat 2. And the first thing that you have to do is you show up to this camp in Alberton, Indiana. I'm sorry, not Alberton. This is Elkhart, Indiana. We used to do our spring training in Elberton, so I get them a little bit confused. Um, yeah, so Elkhart, Indiana, rowing in like the windiest place on the earth, and the first thing you do is you fly to Indiana, you show up, and you gotta before you do anything, you put your union on, and you sit on an erg and you do a 2K. And so everybody rows a 2K just to kind of prove, that you row what you say you do. And I think everybody there was like 6:05. I don't think anybody was under 6 minutes. 6:05 to 6:10. I think some of the guys were 6:03, and but on the top of the list, and he hadn't showed up to the camp, because everybody gets there within a matter of a few days. So we'd been there for a couple days, but everybody knew this. There was somebody who is like at 5:50. He was like 15 seconds faster than anybody else on this list, and nobody had ever heard of him. And he was coming from California, and it's probably not helpful to use names, but I have to. Man, this guy shows up finally, and we'd been there for almost a week, and we're like, who is this guy, Matt Buster? And we're like, who is this dude? The guy runs a 5:50. Like, there's no way. Like, no, like Garrett Miller wasn't even rowing 5:50. Not many people were at 5:50, but this dude was at, on paper, he was rowing 5:50 from some school in California, Orange Coast. And sure enough, he shows up. Goldilocks, like his hair is like down to past his shoulders. And he's like, he doesn't look like he's an athlete at all. Like kind of a power keg, beer belly. And he was just a surfer guy. He's like, what's up, guys? And we're like, what? He did not fit the mold. He didn't fit what anybody's expectation was. Everybody looks like Michael Phelps, 6'8", and just, pipes, for veins coming out of their arm. And then Matt Buster, just, not much muscle definition. And we're like, yeah, no way. And so everybody crowds around this rowing machine. And I remember Brian Volpenheim and all these other guys were there. And we're all crowding around this dude, and he blasts everybody away. And he rows like a 5:48. He goes like under 5:50. We're all like, oh my God. Like,
This is
you've got to be
97, right?
97. Like, nobody was under 5:50. Nobody. Like, nobody. Like, no. And it was just like, what on, like, no, like, make him do it again. Somebody check the rowing machine. It's like something's wrong.
And now high school kids are, like.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know it's crazy. Like, trust me, Dan, I'm going there. Buds used to be really hard.
We're gonna get there.
Hey, so Matt Buster, they put him in the boat.
What you just did. I love what you just did.
That Matt Buster, so of course they have to put him in the top boat, so it bounces me out, like, now I'm in the second boat, and I'm watching, and now it's just amazing. So I get to watch kind of like, I'm stroking the second boat, and Nick Anderson's with me, and Henry Newsom, he's right behind me, and like all these like epic dudes, that are just incredibly strong, and there's Matt Buster. They throw him in the engine. They throw him in the 7 seat because he's just a beast. No, you know what? I'm sorry, he wasn't in the 7 seat. They put him in like the 3 seat just so he couldn't kill the boat. But the guy couldn't row. Like, I think within the first half hour rowing, he caught a crab, a boat, like it was a boat stopping crab. Threw him out of the boat, ejected him from the boat, ripped the rigger right off the boat. This guy was a bit strong guy, like. And he got pulled out of the boat. The boat ran right over him. So all the riggers are hitting him in the head, and he's just looking up. He's like,
oh God!
And he's like, man, that was a gnarly crab, dude. And we're like, yeah, you just ruined that boat. Like, now we have like that boat, but they were like, no, we're gonna force it. We're gonna make him. And Mike Tatey, the head coach, his theory was like, if you can pull the score on the machine, we're going to teach you to row, and you're going to row in the national team boat. That was the policy. And so they rowed, they tried and tried and tried. and just and really kind of forced this square peg into a round hole. And then and finally they realized like, okay, maybe you need to go to like a learn to row camp for a while. And the guy ended up leaving the camp, and it was sad because like he was such a cool guy. And he brought such a spirit and like such a humbling spirit about him. And it just, to be around somebody that doesn't even like know the gift that he has. He doesn't even like, and he's so non-assuming. He's the nicest dude in the world. He doesn't talk shit. And just, but he beats the shit out of everybody. He kicks everybody's ass. Like that was such an awesome, humbling experience to have this guy show up to camp and just shut everybody up. And kind of just,
Awesome.
and I don't know if I never really, I don't think he came back to any camps. But it's really sad because the dude just raw power, just his raw talent. That guy could have rode a 528, with some training. He could have shattered world records on the rowing machine. Just had it, anyway, rowing camps. So this is Elkhart, Indiana. Was
there something that happened with an air conditioner also? Is that allowed to be told? Was there
an air conditioner? What? Yeah, like
I phoned a friend. I don't know if you're involved in that enough.
Help me out here. You're gonna have to, because I feel like
Nick said Nick says hi, and he said didn't he liberate an air conditioner for himself too?
Benny did.
No,
I'm
Buster,
sorry.
yeah.
Well, Matt Buster. Okay. Oh,
Did Buster liberate an air conditioner before he left the camp? Did he?
I've got it. I'm trying to think. We're gonna have to. I'm gonna have to phone a friend.
We'll ask Nick. We'll ask Nick later on. But I was trying to add some secret information there as the interviewer. But
hey, so let me think about that. Let me come back to it. I've got some PTSD and some TBI, and so there are holes. There are definite holes. And so but let me. That's gonna keep me up. I'm gonna remember that at probably like 2 a.m. So thanks, Steve. I'm gonna text that kid. Anyway, yeah, I'll. So Elkhart, they boat us. They put us, through some racing, and but right before they were getting the final boats set up, because there's still a lot of guys there, and I was, I was definitely in the top 1 or 2 boats, kind of just bouncing around, and as all of us were, we just, they hadn't really defined a lineup yet. But I remember the coach was saying, Chris Clark was like, hey, does anybody know how to scull? And again, who knows how to scull? And nobody raised their hand, and not many people did. And I was like, well, I know how to do it, but I don't want to leave and they're like, you know how to scull? You're going to Princeton. And I'm like, hold on. And they're like, hey, you can either take your chances, getting boated in these boats, and your chances are probably pretty bad, knowing that you can scull to make the top 8, so that you row at national championships in this developmental 8, or you can go help Igor Grinko out at Princeton, and you're guaranteed. You have a much higher chance of being raced, boated for the national championships in a quad. And I was like, oh geez, like nobody can scull. How is this possible? Like, and it's funny because
for the world championships, just to be clear, not the national championships.
Yeah. So
it's to go row worlds.
No. This is
okay.
This is to row at the national. Yeah. We're not even at the world yet.
This is back when the national championships it was a real national championship regatta, like the best American rowers showed up.
Good context for the audience. Thank you, myself included.
So, this is an important part because, I was like, oh man, this is pre-elite. This is not even the senior national, like world championship team. This is just like, hey, can we get on the pre-elites? Can we get voted at nationals? We're still trying to get to Princeton, which is the senior national development camp. but your chances, if you're going to be, if you're going to race to the, you're going to be in the top 8, you're probably going to go to Princeton and get thrown into the world mix. But now I had a decision to make, and I was like, well, I do know how to skull, and I did tell the coaches that, and they were just like, "Be gone, we need people that know how to skull." And I was like, this sucks, because I didn't want to leave this camp. I was like, I was doing well, and I was making great relationships and friends, and you got a lot of rapport built, and we're living with this little old lady. I shouldn't say old lady. This gem of a lady, just letting us eat all the food in her house, and just living at her house, and for us to row in this windy city, but nope. I packed my bag. I got on a Greyhound bus and went across the country to Princeton, where Mike Porterfield and Igor Grinko were trying to develop scullers to be competitive. And I had we talked a little bit about my sculling experience, but that was back in '95, where Bob Jogstetter, he's the one that taught me how to row sculling. Again, this is two oars, and not a lot of sweep rowers at the collegiate level get that experience. So I attribute this opportunity to my experience in '95 and going off to the Olympic Festival, which that's where we won the gold there in '95. But then now in '97, I'm going to go back to a sculling boat and row with some scullers in Princeton, and wherever else. So we.
I also think it's
and
important.
was,
you mentioned Igor, and just for historical context, I think it's really important to know what that calling is. Is one, Igor had just coached the men's quad to a silver medal in '96 in Atlanta at a home Olympics, and two, they had chased down the Germans who won gold. And what people really like to try to, because I think the history of it all is amazing, is it's kind of the first time the Germans were united, because the Berlin Wall had fell in '89. So the '92 Olympics, they were still two fractured countries. So this is a super German quad and our U.S. quad. So Igor really did an amazing job. I believe it was the only heavyweight medal the men's team had won was in that quad. The lightweight had won bronze. And so and then Porterfield's a Husky, you know what I mean? He's a Northeastern guy. So talk about the pressure of showing up to say, hey, I'm doing well in these two boats, but now I got to be the sculler with somebody I look up to and the dude that just brought home the heavyweight medal from '96. So it's I gotta make sure everybody knows the pressure you're under. It's oh, you're not just going to scull, you're going to see if you can improve upon a silver medal from the Olympics in that cohort.
Great. That's a great calibration, Dan, and I appreciate that. It provides some really valuable context on some of the individuals, but also kind of the time and place of this particular opportunity. And it was it's a unique time, and I'm also in a point in my my little rowing career, because I'm trying to make decisions based on not a lot of information, and there's risk in that, because here's this guy, he's kind of a no name from Northeastern, and Northeastern had a little bit of a stigma with it, and it was earned. Everything's earned, and we earned a stigma, and I think that the rowers from Northeastern had a little bit of that uphill challenge, with some of the senior coaching, some of the other teams that were there. We're on the heels of an embarrassing racing season, or a couple seasons, forfeiture, et cetera. And now we're getting back into the mix, and rowing hard and rowing Igor style, and which is challenging in itself. But Mike Porterfield was there, just a tremendous American, and he's helping really provide the proverbial glue for some of these developmental rowers to be successful. And we had an opportunity to row at the nationals that year, which was a phenomenal opportunity when we went back out to Indiana, where the nationals were held. and we raced in a couple of different boats. I raced in some doubles and some quad. Um, and it and Porty he divided the quad up into a couple of the two doubles. And so I was rowing with Jim Needham, and we were racing against Dan Protz and Dan Perkins. Both of those guys, Dartmouth guys, were just war horses, and we didn't do so well in nationals in the double. We got beat. I think we got second place. I think even like Penn AC beat us, um, and uh, and and that was a hard boat to row. Like I felt like I was rowing against Jim. Like I felt like we were rowing in two different directions. So that boat just didn't move, and which is really strange because I can move a single really well. He can move a single really well, but you get the two of us in the boat, and that boat was just rowed backwards. It was not a fast boat. And watching Dan Perkins and Dan Protz, just like they look like little fairy dust rowing away from us, and we were just like, come on, let's get this thing going. It must have been ugly to watch, and it was also a bit rattling for my confidence. Like that was that's not like there's two people in this boat. And I'm obviously part of the problem, and I'm not making this boat row fast. Okay, so we fast forward, we all end up going back to Princeton, and now that the nationals is done, we're kind of in the mix there, and now we're rowing in eights. And everybody's back from like all the the seasonal racing, all the national championships over, the Henleys is over, the Oxford Harvard the Oxford Cambridge race is over, and so everybody's filtering back into this giant cauldron of talent. And Mike Tatey is just he's starting to get the boats together. There's steep racing, and it's just a grind. It's an absolute grind. I always felt like I was behind the power curve, so I was doing extra workouts during the day. So we'd have morning and afternoon workouts, and I was there living. I living as simple as I could, but I was doing everything I could to get stronger, and spending as much time on the water as I could. But I remember they were like, okay, here's the lineup for the U23 boat. This is the Pan American boat, and then this is the national team boat. And my name was not called, and I was like, oh man, wait a second. Now that being, let me rewind a couple of weeks, because there's an important part here, and I remember having like. I had a little bit of a physical therapy issue, and I was not able to get through it. Doc Hosey was taking care of me, and I was dealing with like shoulder pain, elbow pain, neck pain, everything was just hurting because I was just overtraining. I was just absolutely overtrained. I was asked to leave the camp. Like Mike Tate is like, hey, you can stay here, but you're just going to be, rowing in the third, fourth boat, or you can go to Boston, where they have the pairs camp, and and you can go be competitive up in the pairs camp. Why don't you just go up to Boston? Charlie Butt's running a pairs camp up there, and then good luck, because the pair hasn't been determined yet, and you can go be competitive for the pair. And I was like, I'm gonna go to Boston to this weird pairs, this strange pairs camp. I'm like, I'm from Boston, and I'm gonna go. I still have my apartment up there, and so I went back to Boston. And I checked in. I went to Harvard's boathouse to talk to Charlie Butt, and I was like, hey, do anybody know where the national team pairs camp is? Literally exactly like that. And they're like, what are you talking about? Charlie Butt's, he's out on the water with the national team pair. I was like, well, what does that mean? Where's I heard there was a camp where we could compete for slot. And they're like, no, man, the pair's already been chosen. This is the Cox pair. And I was like, wow. So I called Mike Tatey. I said, hey, Mike, appreciate appreciate you sending me up to Boston for this opportunity to be part of this pairs camp. But there's no pairs camp. There's like Charlie Butt rowing with with the U.S. national team Cox pair. And he's like, well, yeah, you do some racing, do some racing up there. Yeah. And I was like, well, like, there's nobody up here. There's no pairs camp.
My God, so U.S. rowing at the time.
Mike, man.
Yeah.
Like, and he's like, okay, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'm going to send a guy up there. To row with you. And then you could row with him. I was like, oh, cool. Who's this going to be? And he's like, well, I got a couple guys here. I was like, well, can you send Chip Kakis? And he's like, no, I'm going to use Chip in the Pan Am boat. I was like, okay, well, who? Like, I'm trying to think in my, I'm like, who else is down there that's not going to be in one of the top boats who's still a fast guy that I rode with, either in the camps or whatever. And he's like, I want to send this guy Jordan Irving. Like, I remember hearing about him. He was one of those guys from, he was rowing in England. Yeah, he's a Yale guy. He's just not good enough to make the top boats. And so, I'm going to send you Jordan, but I'm going to give you your choice of coxswain. So who's it going to be? And I was like, I want Nick. And because I rode with Nick. Nick was one of the coxswains down there. He was with me through all the training camps. I was like, I want Nick Anderson. That guy knows how to win a race. Or at least he knows how to not lose a race. And so he sent these two guys up to Boston, sent Jordan and Nick, and they showed up. I never even met Jordan. And we're like, okay. They drove up in this giant Ford Bronco, and they're like, where's this camp? And I was like, well, there's no camp. There's me, and we have to go figure out to go find a boat. And so we went over to Harvard. We talked to Charlie Butt, and we're like, okay, I've got my other rower. We have a coxswain. We'd love to join this like pairs camp or whatever, be. And they're like, well, there's no boats here, but I heard there's a couple of Cox pair boats over at Northeastern's boathouse. Why don't you go row out of that boathouse? I was like, sure, okay. It's called Buzz. And I remember this. I was like, hey, Buzz, we have this opportunity. He's like, no, I don't want, you can't use those boats. And I'm like, oh, who else is using those boats? I had to convince Buzz to let us use one of the Cox pairs, to just go and train and go. We didn't even know what this was. Like, we had no idea. Can we just go row in these Cox pair boats? Okay. Just don't scratch it. My gosh. Okay.
What was his trepidation? Was it like liability or like? And
Hold on. With this so content rich, and we are technically this is international as you are in Italy. You have done it again, Fentress. You have gotten us to making things seem so casual, where you have recovered from a devastating four of us. Like, hey, can you all shut up about what happened? We got through it. Let's move on now. You go through your first induction into the national team kind of hellhole, which is like, yeah, come here and perform. And the better you perform, the more we move you around. You go through like this wild goose chase in Boston, going into the belly of the beast, like the emotional weight of having to go into the Harvard boathouse, especially after what you kind of went through with racing them, is there's so many things to unpack that I don't want to rush you once again. And I know that there's so much more to this that I would like to just say, we're going to leave ourselves and the audience on another cliffhanger with Fentress.
Yeah.
The
totally.
25 plus year captain of the Navy SEALs, and we haven't even gotten to that decision yet, because you are literally standing on the dock of a boathouse that you built, being told you can't use a boat that you've made go fast, and there's way too much to unpack there. So if you're cool with it, I feel like we got to do a Fenny part 3, man. Like, we're not gonna get through this in the time a lot. Like, it just the story deserves, just on your human spirit to refuse to be stopped in this mission. And I think it's going to segue too great into the like chapter 3 of this story. So please, if you're willing, can we stop here on the dock of Henderson being told that you as a Northeastern Husky can't use that equipment for excellence? May we pause?
This is your show. I am a humble guest. First of all, I'm sorry for killing you with just mindless stories. I mean, I feel like we haven't gotten
conversation.
But I would be delighted. I would I'll give you guys any opportunity that you'd like to have any of this continuation. Absolutely. This is for you. So. Well, I appreciate your vote of confidence. Gladly oblige.
Oh, well, because I think it also, and selfishly for me, is that 97 was me making the junior team, and we wind up racing the same event and it's like like I said, in my pantheon, you are very high up in the shoulders that I stand on. And I think there's just so much interesting things and nuance to unpack that to rush it would do the story disservice. And like you said, it's our show, right? You said my show, it's our show, it's all of us. And this is the Scott Fentress show. So like you are also leading the charge. So I think in this moment, audience, sorry, keep tuning in, because if you want to know how this plays out, you better be ready to come on board. And we really look forward to having you, Scott. You've been such a great guest. You've been such a good friend. You're such a good leader. You literally are an American hero. And I think the honor is ours to be able to like get this story out there and not have to have you put it in a 30-second soundbite. Like we will go to episode 10 if we have to. We're going to be doing this nonstop. And to have you as a consistent face is really our honor on our side. So thank you for allowing us to do a part 3.
That's all for today's show. Fast Friends is a Metal Factory production. All opinions expressed are our own and those of our guests. If you like our show, follow along or subscribe with us wherever you get your content and podcasts. Thanks for listening.